Hola, angels. Today, we are going to enter into the conversation about what is the body. And I'm going to see if I can be as clear as I can on this. So everything is our projection. Everything. You know, if we see someone angry on the street, guess what? It's not their anger, it's my anger. So everything is this projection. And remember when we talked about sin? Sin is insanity, period. Because there's no levels of sin in God's mind. Sin does not exist. But unfortunately, we came into a world that really believes in sin in every way possible. And the body is the last stronghold of seeing sin. And hang on. Just to start off, the body is a fence the Son of God imagines he has built to separate parts of his self from other parts. Okay, so what the body is fencing off and in are these separate parts. And the separate parts are those that can sin, and the outside is love, eternal love. So once we get down to starting to really work on this projection we call the body, it's going to get intense. Primarily because every projected fear, and this is really up to this point, we've just been dealing with projected fear. I see something out there, I want to correct it. I need to forgive myself for thinking that. So, you know, and that's a big, long process, and that'll probably continue until your last breath. But in that process, once you start doing this work a while, you stop projecting on others as much, and you start seeing that every judgment you make, every single judgment you make, is causing you to suffer. And that's abuse of the body, is to cause it to suffer. Now, this gets tricky because, again, everything is just a lesson we would learn. This is not being about good because we're healthy or bad because we have a headache. It's just there's some degree of healing in mind that needs to happen. Now, someone asked me this week, and I really wanted to address this too, Hannah. It was a great question. You know, what is deep prayer? And the reality is, and this is where it really, you know, it goes back into how committed are you, really? Because it's not the depth of the prayer, it's the consistency of the prayer. So it's really to see every single time. Let's kind of work this around to the body. So everything's a projection. And say we see something in our form that doesn't feel good, a headache. Let's just work with a simple headache. We're projecting this headache on our body. It's causing our body to suffer. Now, that's probably a more accurate and honest depiction of what happens when we start to take back our projections, because every single one of our projections is self-abuse. So now it's getting close to the body. We have a headache. Oh my God, I'm suffering. That's impossible. You can't suffer off of any projection. So let's go back to this little paragraph. Okay, it refers to the body as the fence that keeps certain parts of self separate from others, which really, if you want to simplify this, the body keeps us separate from love and fear. We're either loving our body just because we have one, or we're beating it up for not being good enough. And that's when we get sick, we start beating it up. Oh, what can I do? I need to take an aspirin. Oh, that didn't work. I need to go to a chiropractor. It keeps on and on and on. And the abuse and suffer continue. But at some point, when you're really seeing that you have this single desire for the peace of God, and you're really willing to commit to prayer, you will take whatever you see as the body suffering, and you will take it first and immediately to Holy Spirit to see it differently, because it's just some form of fear. And the body is all about ultimate safety, which is where we don't trust God. We just don't trust God. We're going to handle it, we will handle it. And then it becomes kind of our whole commitment in life is to handle trusting God. But the reality is it's real personal. Instead of judging, we've got to see that we're not trusting God, that we're just getting the lessons that we would learn. They're just lessons. That little headache that you have is just a mere lesson that you would learn. And it really is about dropping into prayer immediately. And that's why I say it's not the depth of prayer as much as it is the consistency of prayer. So every time you think that headache is still here, I've had it all morning. Prayer, Holy Spirit, allow whatever belief is keeping this little headache in place. Allow the belief underneath that to become clear to me. I'm asking for Holy Spirit's help with that. And that's where you bring it up. Oh, God, I've got 15 different pathways going through at the same time. I think I'll talk about this one after we go off the recording. Let me continue on with okay, it is within this fence you as a person thinks he lives. To die as it decays and crumbles, which is so perfect. Yes, the body is decaying and crumbling, and somehow that has meaning about who we are, that we're not okay. We're not good with God. So we've got to do something to make ourselves better. This is basically, we're seeing the body as sinning. This simple little headache we see as a sin. Okay? Sin is anything that's not love. And that's why all sin from the last session, all sin is insanity. The idea of sin is just there to drive us mad. So if we can just take this little headache and, oh, great, I'm getting a little lesson from God. Holy Spirit, allow this belief that's coming up with this headache to surface and allow me to see it differently through your eyes of clarity. Same thing with cancer. Oh, look, I'm getting this little lesson called cancer. Holy Spirit, please help me see the belief underneath the cancer. That is the lesson that I must learn, and I need to see it through your eyes. And this goes with everything. So when I talk about dropping into deep prayer, it's through those things that are looping through my mind. Big or little, it doesn't matter. I have got to, every time I have this thought that something or someone or I am not okay, I have to drop immediately into prayer to ask for help from the only one that can help me, which is Holy Spirit. Talking to others won't do it. Joining with other clueless beings actually won't do it. I have to take that on for myself and drop into prayer to see myself as the loving thought in the mind of God that I still am. Never left. And this is not just with the body, although today we're talking about the body, but if we see this is a big one, other bodies suffering, there you go. That's just a projection once removed. So it's not aimed at yourself, you're aiming it at someone else. Same thing. Every time you have that thought that someone else is broken or not okay, drop into prayer. Holy Spirit, I want to see so-and-so is they are suffering in some way. And my projection. And it really is, where am I seeing myself as suffering? That's the real question, because they're not there. So if I'm having that thought, the only thing I can be having that thought about is myself. And that's why all judgment, every single judgmental thought you have ever had or will have is a judgment against yourself. Period. And that's why it goes back to this, pull back those projections, whether they're on somebody out there or on your own body. And the deep prayer is being consistent with it. So every single time you have another thought, okay, let's just talk about, I had an alcoholic father. Every time I thought about him, it was usually some judgment about his alcoholism. Every single time I thought, God, Dad's drunk again, or oh, Dad's going to get a drink, or any of those little thoughts, it was for me to immediately go to Holy Spirit. I don't want to suffer with this one anymore. And I know you can help me see the belief that's under it. Now, for me, because I dealt with the projection called an alcoholic father for years. And I really got, he and I are one. So anytime I had any kind of negative thought about him, it was so clear who the problem was. It had nothing to do with them. And that's why I had to turn immediately to myself as the source of that suffering. And in prayer, for a lot of prayer, with everything, it's just, Holy Spirit, I need your help to see this differently, because my limited perception keeps me engaged with a problem. And I no longer want that to be the case. And this has to be every single thought. That's the commitment. And not everybody's up for that commitment. And I get it. You know, I I remember thinking at one point when I decided to get out of hospice, I knew that something massive was going to be required of me. Massive. And you know, it's interesting. I know of a dear, dear, dedicated person to A Course in Miracles that passed recently, and it was cancer, and they actually put out a notice. Does anyone know any, special cancer people or whatever? And then later I heard, after they had passed, that they decided not to go that route because they would have had to engage with their bodies too much. And they weren't willing to get engaged with their bodies, which I understand completely. Because that's how I got out of hospice, was by engaging completely and honestly with my body. Hardest thing I've ever done, to really keep this primary focus. And I actually talked to someone that knew them, but they're not prepared to talk yet. But I would love to have an honest conversation with someone that has gone into this thought stream of, I'm not going to heal, I'm not going to get involved with healing my mind because my body's showing up as sick, because it will require too much of me to get involved in my form. Now, for me, my lessons, so many of my lessons were this so-called self-loathing. And the only way to deal with self-loathing is to get into the body. Honestly, totally honestly. And, at the time, I remember when it came up and I was starting to think, oh my God, this is going to require everything of me. Everything. It's going to consume every molecule of who I think Calico is to be. And I'm not saying this to scare you, but I am saying it to, this is the critical piece of single perspective. What do I want? Peace of God, period. That's it. That's all I want. And really, I want the honesty when I'm not having that single perspective. And this, and you can't avoid the conflict and confusion that will come up with this. If you want to avoid conflict and confusion, throw A Course in Miracles out now. Totally. Join a religion. Believe in sin and go to the confessional once a week and, die a natural death, and quote unquote, and, start all over again. That's not what A Course in Miracles is. Because it is within this fence we call the body. We think we live, to die as it decays and crumbles. For within this fence, I think that I am safe from love. Because the body, until we love this body completely, we have a fence around ourselves saying, well, we'll just deal with whatever icky thoughts we have within this fence and pretend that we're loving ourselves. This gets into the people pleasing. We'll just look to the outside world. How you doing? Oh, fine, fine. Thanks for asking. Great. Life's good. When inside we're breasts are too big, the feet hurt, the ankles are swollen. I don't see like I used to. I mean, there's 1,001 complaints. And I say, take each one of those, get a complaint journal going and write out body complaints. Put them all down on a list. And then Holy Spirit, every time I think of one of these thoughts, I'm going to be asking you the same prayer. It's not a deeper prayer. It's just a consistent prayer. Help me see this differently through your eyes of love. Because in my little fence called calico body, I may see swollen ankles. I may see a headache. I may see cancer. But I've got to get honest in saying that's not normal. See, we've just gotten that it's all normal. It's fine. Yeah. Yeah, just go on. Go out and have another pizza. Go on the latest diet. Here in Namaste, khichdi. I don't know if any of you are Ayurvedics, but I did khichdi for a year. I hated khichdi. It's like this mash. So all you ate was this mash, mung bean mash. And it was, supposing to the Ayurvedics, it was the best thing in the world that you could do for yourself. I did it for a whole year. I've never been so miserable. And at the end of the year, I said, that's it. I am done with khichdi. And so now I just laugh when anyone says, are you going to do the khichdi this week? It's like, not a chance. I love myself too much. And it's like, what am I going to eat? I don't know. That's on a moment by moment basis. Totally. Okay. So here it is. For within this fence we call our bodies, I think I am safe from love. That I can be as critical of myself as possible within this fence. The body's not perfect, and this is how we can improve it, make it better, make it stronger, blah, blah, blah. It's all identifying with this safety. I regard myself as what safety is. See, this is a great topic to really do some concerted thoughts about. What is safety to you? What is safety? Because if I'm still feeling the need to be safe, even, after I pulled back all the projections and I'm just dealing with this thing called the body, but I'm still trying to improve it because, well, you can always have better health. Better. Okay. You can always have better health. You can look better. You can feel better. Better, 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 better. It's all bullshit. It's just me beating myself up again. That's how much I don't like myself. And while I'm beating myself, I'm telling God, I don't trust you to take care of my safety. I've got to handle this one. And if it means eating khichdi for a year, I'll eat khichdi for a year. Thank you very much. It's like, I'm not trusting God. And I'm not saying go out and, well, maybe I am consuming Milky Ways every day, all day long. I don't know. I mean, I really go with whatever is provided in the moment, and I'm quite happy with that. So this, if you can see your body as the last stronghold where we hold sin, is real, that the body is going to let us down. It's going to decay and crumble. It's a belief. And we've got to start really getting that pristine with our prayers. So every time that little thought comes through of, oh, the body's slowing down, I don't like that. Or the body's looking older, I don't like that. Whatever. And I've done this my whole life, so I'm really I'm clued into it. I really know when I'm having negative body thoughts. And I immediately in prayer. And sometimes if it's a big prayer, that's the other thing I wanted to say about prayer. It requires quiet. It requires, if you're dealing with some big issues coming up, take yourself offline, put yourself into bed, and just hold the thought, Holy Spirit, I need help. This one I need help with. I cannot do this without you. And then, just see how it goes. Perhaps you fall asleep and then you wake up and you're fine. And then about after 2 minutes, you start having the thought again. Again, prayer, Holy Spirit, here's that thought again. It's coming through again. And I really need to clear this out. Help me see the belief that's underneath this. And then you go out and take a walk. You're fine for the walk. You come back and the same thought links about. It's like, and that's the consistency. When I talk about deep prayer, that's what I'm talking about, is consistency. Like we've never practiced consistency before. We're worth it. We're worth that kind of consistency. And again, I put a link in the chat. I don't know if you YouTubers are going to get this or not, but this is a talk this woman did about people pleasing. And half the people pleasing is about us wanting to look okay, not even look good, just look passable. Oh my God. Growing up, I never knew what was okay. Everything was chaotic. And so I would look to other people that I thought looked normal, and I'd try and act like them. So anytime anything would come up in my mind, I'd go, ooh, act like Mary Jo. She's probably one of the most normal looking people I know. So if I just look like Mary Jo, that'll be enough. And that's not it. That's not what the mind training is. The mind training is to go into it, directly into it. Do not sidestep. Okay. And we got a whole paragraph done on what the body is. Well, there's a whole lot of what's prayer, what's the body, people pleasing. And all I can say is just stay with whatever your guidance is, but don't back away from prayer. Prayer is probably the biggest thing. And I know the Course, Jesus talks about it. He tries to feed it to us in subtle ways. After each lesson, it says, do this lesson 3 times a day. Do this lesson 10 times a day. Did any of us, when we first started, reading A Course in Miracles, do that? I don't think so. I certainly didn't. It's like I was lucky to get it in once a morning. Okay. But now prayer is really close to my awareness. I don't get far from prayer because I can see when I'm one thought away from God, and that's usually, oh, there's that little headache. Whoop, stop. Holy Spirit, help me see this differently. Headaches are impossible. Even before hitting the baby aspirin or whatever else I would take, it's like I go into prayer first. Okay. Bye, YouTube people.